Immigration Reform Law Institute has a new investigation out. And Jason, you've got something very timely given what's going on around the country right now. Tell us what you found.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, what we did here was we singled out North Carolina, and what we wanted to do there was find out how many non citizens across the state were disqualified for jury being in jury pools. Now, what we did was, since it would be really just monumentous to go through the entire state, we looked at a few of the counties that are most populated in North Carolina, went to their to the individuals who are in charge of their jury pools and asked them, all right, between such and such time, how many individuals were disqualified due to non-citizenship? And we used a very specific snapshot for this. So basically, for these three different counties, we went to Mecklenburg, Cumberland, and Forsyth. And roughly for all three, we're looking at between October 2019 to July 2020. And we asked them, how many people did you have to take off of your jury pool list of potential jurors due to non-citizenship? And there were a number of individuals here. I mean, in Mecklenburg County, 51, Cumberland, 18, Forsyth, 16. Now, again, very specific snapshot here. We've had other organizations that have looked into it in the past years and have looked at, the same pool of potential jurors throughout years and years, and they found hundreds. The difference between with this one is that this is very recent. It's a very recent snapshot of what's going on in North Carolina. Now, for those who may ask, how is this relevant? What does this have to do with anything? The connection between jury pools and voting is that jury pools are derived either from the Department of Motor Vehicles or voter registration rolls. And that's what we're most concerned about here is, did any of these names get taken from voter registration rolls? And what this does is it really highlights at least the potential for fraud that's taking place in North Carolina. And North Carolina is becoming more and more of a pivotal state as it's more of a swing state now. We're never too sure which way it's going to swing every election year, either red or blue. So it's a very consequential state, and it can easily be the deciding state of who enters the White House. So yeah, that's what we have been looking into, and a lot of these findings are pretty concerning.
Now, people who are following the news right now, this post-election coverage, are hearing about allegations of 600,000 votes in Pennsylvania at issue here, 40,000 in Michigan there. So when people hear this, to those people who might say, well, that sounds like a small number, Jason. It's probably certainly not enough to change an election result. Why does this matter? Why is this important? What does this represent as far as problems embedded in our electoral process?
Well, first and foremost, doesn't matter how large of a victory or margin of a defeat any candidate takes in any election. Any fraudulent vote takes away from someone's legitimate vote. So even if it's just one vote that's done illegally, that erodes the integrity of the election process. Now, in regards to actual numbers and how this can actually change an election, we do have elections that actually go down to single digits. I mean, look what happened in just this past election here. It took days for them to decide, where North Carolina was going to go towards. Same for other states. And I'd actually want to point out in this election year, a congressional race that just finished up, or I think it's now finished here in Iowa in their second congressional district. A Republican state senator there, Mariette Miller Meeks, she won her congressional race by 6 votes. That's it, 6 votes. And this isn't a local or city council race. This is a U.S. congressional race that went down to the wire by 6 votes. So this isn't an abnormality where major elections are decided by single digits here. So yes, every vote counts, no matter how small.
The other thing I think is important to note is that, as you referenced earlier, we're talking about 3 counties in one state over a very specific period of time. I can only imagine what might turn up if a similar investigation had been done in, say, the entire state of California or New York or Illinois, why am I suspicious that this is not contained to the state of North Carolina?
It's certainly not. And we've seen complaints from other, whether it be activist organizations or people running to replace current, Secretary of States in various states, that voter rolls do need to be updated. They need to be reformed, and additional measures need to be taken hold of to protect the integrity of these elections, right? And there, you have found numerous people on voter rolls that are dead, they've moved away, or I mean, in this case that we're citing specifically, not even legal citizens. They're not U.S. citizens. So these are things that need to be taken seriously by both parties.
Now, in the release that is on early.org with the details of this investigation, you talk about how the person that you contacted down there, one of the people you contacted, told you that this information for the juries are pulled from the DMV and the voter registration rolls. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So is there any way to know of these voters you had identified, or I'm sorry, of these individuals you identified, how many of them were from DMV and how many of them were from voter registration?
Well, what you can do, and this is what our friends here over in North Carolina, which they lead the Voter Integrity Project there, Jay Delancey is a co-founder. He's been looking into this for years. His group has been looking into this for years. And what they would typically do is they would compare these names of potential jurors who were found to be non-citizens and compare them to the voter registration rolls and check for matches. And this has been done in the past. They've actually found hundreds of hits, which obviously raises other questions. But you could still make the argument that even with a match, those names were still derived from the Department of Motor Vehicles, either through vehicle registrations or other ways. So it's still kind of murky, and really all the more reason why more reforms need to be taken to make it clear, all right, where are these names coming from, and how do you prevent them from even ending up in voter registration rolls or in, jury pools.
Now, the fact that non-citizens are turning up in jury pools seems to be sort of a buried lead in this story as well. There are not supposed to be non-citizens on juries, correct?
No, and that is integral to our justice system. We're judged by a jury of our peers. If you are not a U.S. citizen, you cannot be a member of a jury. You are disqualified. So that does raise other questions too about the integrity of our justice system. That they're even on these potential lists.
So this is a lot more than just the potential of non-citizens voting. It's also the reality that you have non-citizens being considered for jury when they're not supposed to be.
Right, correct. And just shows, the registration systems they're very massive. Lots of things they fall through the cracks, and the protective measures need to be taken.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Jay Delancey in the release on early.org. He is quoted on there as well, and he talked about how they've accumulated a lot of evidence as to this problem, but he said that the political leaders or people lack the political will to do anything about it. Why is it our political leaders have so little interest in fixing these problems?
It amazes me why there are not more politicians that are alarmed by this and that aren't doing more. As you mentioned, Delancey, his group, Voter Integrity Project, they've been working on this since 2011, 2012, and they're still arguing about the same thing and pointing out the same problems, which really shows you that in almost a decade's time, nothing's really changed in North Carolina, and you're seeing the same issues in other states as well. And this is with and it's a problem for both parties, right? In North Carolina, over the past years, you've had a Republican state legislature with a Republican governor. Specific bill that they were pushing did not pass, and then now that you have a Democratic governor there, Roy Cooper, he's vetoed a bill. This was last year, SB 250, which would have put in more protective measures into voter registration in North Carolina. It would have updated the voter rolls. He vetoed that bill. So you see in both parties where just there's a lack of will to take this problem on.
Yeah. Well, there's an op-ed on early.org right now on the banner that I think everyone should check out because it goes into detail there on the problem you just mentioned, which is both of these political parties, to one degree or another, have vested interests in keeping this problem right where it is. I think the Democrats are a little more overt about it, about their support for it, but I think every time you see someone from the other party giving very weak or no opposition to some of these uh, bills that would give amnesty, blanket amnesty, promoting DACA, things of this nature, there's an interest in putting more voters in the country who are more likely to vote a certain way. Isn't that really one of the core issues of the problem here?
That does appear to be the case, certainly for Democratic lawmakers and politicians. You see where they have a reason, they have an interest to not tackle this issue because many in the immigrant community, they certainly prefer Democrats over Republicans. So they don't want to offend that group of people. And then you also see it too on the GOP side in that they're basically told if you sort of tackle these issues, that's looked at as xenophobic, racist, whatnot. So in a way, it kind of scares lawmakers who would otherwise be willing to protect voter integrity. So the result is both parties end up really doing nothing about it.
Right. And I think one of the other motivations possibly why some Republicans have been okay with this is that they're tied in with big business. They get donations. Those businesses want cheap labor. They're more than happy to accommodate them, especially since they're getting donations back from those businesses. So different parties, different motivations, same result.
Unfortunately, yes, that is the case.
Yeah. Now, if our government wanted to, as Mr. Delancey referenced, if let's just say they had the political will, which sadly they don't right now, what could they do to fix the kind of problems you've discovered here?
Right. On the subject of North Carolina, they could simply just pass SB 250. I mean, this is a bill. It's failed now, but this is something that would update voter registration. It would provide a verification process for those on voter rolls. So it really would update the process and weed out individuals who shouldn't be on the voter rolls anyways. And these are things any state can adopt and pass. But they haven't passed that. And Delancey said that Republican lawmakers had actually waited until there was a Democratic governor to finally pass that through both chambers, and then of course it got vetoed. But beyond that too, you see, for example, we covered Mecklenburg County. This is a place where it's become a sanctuary county. The new sheriff there does not want to enforce immigration law or work with immigration officials, particularly when it's involved with the 287G program and notifying ICE of illegal aliens that are in his custody. So you just see where it's expanded that they don't even want to cooperate on immigration enforcement whatsoever. So you would see a problem like this rise. I mean, with more illegal aliens who clearly don't care about the law, don't abide by the law, what's to stop them from trying to maliciously get on voter registration rolls and participating in elections?
Now, since the election happened in early November, and there's a direction that the media wants it to go, that the DC swamp wants it to go. If it goes that way, I think people are getting very nervous out there because they see a lot of the gains that were made on the immigration front the last 4 years potentially slipping away, almost certainly if it goes that way. And people are wondering what can be done because calling these politicians doesn't seem to get anywhere. They get written off, they get dismissed by these, they send you to an intern who just ignores you. What can you do? As you've seen from this investigation, this story would not have been produced by your average journalist in the media. It comes to organizations like Early to discover these things and to do the legwork that Jason has done here. The work we've done in the courts, you can look it up on our website, victory after victory after victory. Many times you've got 20, 30 left-wing anti-borders groups filing for one side. Early is the only group filing for the other side, the pro-America side. So if you're wondering and you're panicking and you're thinking, what am I going to do? Where can I throw support to make a difference? Early is an organization that gets the results. And it's evidenced by this investigation, the many other investigations on the website, the victories in courtrooms all across the country. So go to early.org if you want to find a worthy organization to support. You can also check us out on all the social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Parler, Twitter. We're on all those. So please check that out. Jason, I want to thank you again for your work, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.